The first thing was the silence. Not comfortable, not empty. A silence that seemed to breathe, as though the room itself was holding its breath. Her voice broke it. Low, steady, almost careless. One kiss. Just one. I laughed, but too quickly, the sound catching in my throat. That's all it takes. She didn't answer. She only looked at me. 40-something years pressed into that gaze, a polish I could never imitate. Her hair pinned back, one curl loose against her cheek. She wore the kind of calm you couldn't fake, the kind that made every restless shift in my body feel like a confession. I stood straighter, though it didn't help. 20 years old and still raw around the edges. My hands shoved in my pockets, fingers tightening and loosening as though they could hide my nerves. Why does she look at me like that? The air in her apartment carried a faint citrus, maybe wine, maybe her perfume. A candle on the table burned low, its wax dripping in uneven lines. My throat was dry. I shifted my weight, the floorboards creaking just loud enough to make me feel clumsy. "Don't take me too seriously," she murmured, finally turning her eyes away, though her lips curved as if she'd already decided something. "It's late. I'm only teasing." But her hand rested on the back of the chair a second too long. Not gripping, not loose, lingering, as though even furniture deserved tenderness. My eyes betrayed me. They caught on that hand, then rose too quickly to her face. She noticed. Of course she noticed. I tried to fill the silence. You always say things like that." "Like what?" My tongue felt heavy. "Things that don't sound like a joke." A beat of quiet. Then her laugh, soft, unhurried. The kind that made the space smaller, warmer, harder to leave. She tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to solve something I hadn't said aloud. The age between us sat in the room like a third presence. She with her calm, her deliberate pauses, the way even her silence seemed rehearsed. Me with my restless shoulders, eyes flicking anywhere but hers, like a boy pretending to be a man. I thought of leaving. My body leaned toward the door for half a second, but my feet refused. The candlelight pulled shadows across her face, softening what should have been sharp. Her lips parted like she might speak again, but she didn't. She let me drown in the waiting. Why does she keep doing that? My pulse thudded against my collar. I forced myself to breathe slower, to look at something ordinary. The half-empty glass on the table, the stack of unread letters by the window, the thin curtain lifting in the night breeze. Anything but her. Still, I caught it, the smallest gesture. Her fingers brushing her own wrist, absent-minded, but with the weight of someone trying to hold themselves still. My stomach tightened. I wanted to say something reckless. I wanted to step closer. Instead, I swallowed. "It's not fair." Her brows lifted. "What isn't?" "The way you say things you don't mean." Another pause. She turned fully then, her eyes locking on mine, no more retreating. Whatever grace she carried, it pressed harder now, heavier, undeniable. "One kiss," she repeated, softer this time. Not a tease, not careless, a dare. And I knew, though I wouldn't admit it aloud, that it would never be just one. The rain began without warning, soft at first, then insistent. Drops streaked the window, blurring the streetlights into smeared halos. The sound filled the silence between us, a steady percussion that made the room feel more sealed off, as though the world outside had slipped further away. She reached for the desk lamp, adjusting it with 2 fingers. The light flickered before settling into a warm glow, throwing her profile into sharper relief. Her hand lingered on the switch. My gaze followed, though I pretended to study the rain. "Storms always come when I don't expect them," she said, voice quieter than before. "They used to make me anxious. Now She stopped, caught herself, then finished. "I let them." I leaned forward, elbows pressing into my knees. My reflection in the glass looked younger than I wanted it to. "You don't seem like the anxious type." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Everyone thinks that." She crossed her arms, then slowly let them fall again, exactly as I had, though neither of us acknowledged it. "Truth is, I used to wait for someone who never came back. Every storm, I thought maybe." She cut off, shaking her head. "Well, you don't need to hear all that." But I wanted to. The weight in her voice made the air feel heavier. My throat tightened. "I don't mind." Her eyes searched mine for too long, as if weighing whether I could be trusted with something fragile. Then she exhaled, soft but shaky, the kind of crack in her polished strength she rarely allowed. He left on a night like this. Said he'd only be gone a week. That was 10 years ago. The words hung between us, neither explanation nor closure. My chest ached in a way I couldn't name. I leaned back slightly, but the room seemed smaller, her presence closer. The lamp's light glowed against her skin, against the faint lines at the corner of her eyes. I swallowed hard. You waited. She gave the smallest nod. Too long. Long enough to realize waiting becomes its own kind of habit. You start mistaking it for love. Her gaze dropped to her hands. Mine did the same, almost automatically, our fingers brushing over the armrests of the chairs, pulling back at the same moment. A reflex, like a spark we both pretended not to notice. Why tell me this? I asked, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. She tilted her head, studying me. For once, she looked less untouchable, less composed, like she was on uncertain ground. Because you asked. And because you're here. Her words pressed against something inside me I couldn't hide. I shifted closer, just enough to feel the space shrink again, the storm outside pounding harder. Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back to me. She didn't step away. Not yet. The rain blurred everything beyond the glass, leaving only the two of us, isolated, as if the world had chosen to vanish on our behalf. The phone buzzed against the table. Once. Twice. Neither of us moved. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me, as if daring me to ask who it was. I didn't. The sound died, leaving the rain to fill the space again. My chest was tight. A rhythm too fast, like my pulse was keeping time with the storm outside. You should leave. But I didn't. She shifted closer, just enough that her sleeve brushed mine. The faintest touch, but it set fire under my skin. Her perfume was stronger here, citrus, but softened by something deeper, something I couldn't name. Do you ever think about it? She asked suddenly. My throat worked. About what? Her lips curved. Not quite a smile. What people would say? If they knew. The words struck deeper than I expected. I looked away, out toward the window, where water ran in crooked lines down the glass. They'd say it was wrong. Her laugh was low, bitter at the edges. Of course they would. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I felt it. Her hand lifting, slow, deliberate, stopping just shy of my face. Her fingers hovered an inch from my cheek, close enough that I imagined the warmth. My breath hitched. The doorknob rattled. Both our heads snapped toward the sound. Silence. No one entered. The handle stayed still. She pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. I sat frozen, every nerve alert. This is, she started, but her voice caught. She tried again. This is dangerous. I swallowed. My own thoughts split in two. Step back. Now. But my body leaned forward instead, traitorous, closing the space between us. Her lips parted. A heartbeat. Another. Then I stopped. 1 inch from her mouth. Close enough to feel the whisper of her breath. Not close enough to close the distance. My voice came out raw. Tell me to leave. Her eyes didn't flinch. They held me steady, sharper than her words. I can't. The phone buzzed again. Louder now, as though the world itself was reminding us of the line we hadn't yet crossed. I pulled back, just slightly, dragging air into my lungs like I'd been underwater too long. She pressed her palm flat against the table, grounding herself, her shoulders rising with a shaky exhale. What happens if someone finds out? I asked, though I didn't know if I wanted her answer. Her gaze flicked away, toward the darkened hallway, then back to me. Then we pretend it never happened. But her eyes betrayed her. They lingered on my mouth. They lingered too long. I told myself to stand, to end this before it broke me. Instead, I stayed. The storm outside thrashed harder. Inside, the silence between us grew sharp enough to cut. It was small, a single strand of hair slipping free from the knot at the back of her head. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and let it fall. Either way, it unsettled me more than the storm, more than the silence. You should go, she said, her voice sharp. Too sharp. I didn't move. You don't mean that. Her eyes narrowed, but her body betrayed her. She leaned in as if pulled by something she couldn't fight. I do. She placed a file in my hand, a flimsy excuse for distance. Our fingers brushed, barely, but enough. A shock. I held the file longer than I needed to, just to feel the ghost of her touch. Her breath reached me then. Warm. Too close. I'm not a child. I muttered, the frustration roughening my voice. Stop treating me like one. Her lips parted. Not to argue, Not yet. She searched my face as though weighing how far I would go. You think this is simple? No, I said, stepping closer. That's why I can't stop. The air thickened. One heartbeat stretched, then another, each one slower, heavier, as though time itself resisted what was coming. She turned away, as if the distance could save her. You'll regret this. Maybe, I whispered, but not tonight. Her shoulders tensed. For a moment, I thought she'd laugh, dismiss me, end it. Instead, she pressed her palm to the desk, as though steadying herself. The lamp's glow caught the curve of her jaw, the trembling at the corner of her mouth. I reached out, stopping just shy of touching her arm. My hand hovered, shaking. She didn't pull away. Say my name, I said. She inhaled sharply. Silence pressed harder, filled with the storm's endless percussion outside. Then, her voice, low, trembling, breaking past her guard. My God, she whispered. You don't know what you're doing to me. I stepped closer, the file slipping from my hand, forgotten on the floor. Our faces were inches apart, so close that her breath was mine. Her eyes closed, then opened again, an instinct to fight herself, to refuse what her body already surrendered to. You should stop, she said, but the words collapsed in the air, weightless. Her lips brushed the space between us, not touching, but promising. Time slowed again. A strand of her hair grazed my cheek. My chest ached from holding still. And then, she broke it. My name left her lips, hushed, urgent, softer than prayer. It cut the air, a line that couldn't be unsaid. The room had gone still. No rain, no thunder, no outside world. Only the faint hum of the lamp and the sound of our breathing, uneven, colliding in the narrow space between us. I couldn't move. Neither could she. The air was too heavy, thick with everything we hadn't said. My heart hammered in my chest, so loud I thought she must hear it. Her voice cut through, steady, deliberate, so much steadier than I felt. We shouldn't. I swallowed, my body frozen. I know. Her eyes didn't leave mine. Then go. But I stayed. My feet rooted to the floor, my breath shaking in my lungs. The silence pressed harder, stretching each second until it felt like time itself was holding us hostage. We shouldn't, she repeated, softer this time. But her body betrayed her, shoulders leaning toward me, her hand twitching like it wanted to rise. I can't, I whispered. Not when you're right here. A flicker crossed her face, fear, want, regret, all at once. She turned her head slightly, as if trying to create distance, but the motion only brought her closer. Every sense sharpened. The faint citrus of her perfume, the warmth of her breath brushing my skin, the shadow of her hair falling against her cheek. Inches between us felt unbearable, electric. Her lips parted, barely, as though she had another protest ready. Instead, what came out was different. A whisper, low and unguarded. Do you even know what this means? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest was too tight, my thoughts fractured. All I knew was the pull. The way her presence erased reason, erased the world beyond this room. Her hand lifted, slow, uncertain, then stopped, hovering just above my chest. Close enough to feel, not close enough to touch. My heart stuttered beneath it, reckless, too fast. We'll regret it, she breathed. Maybe, I said, my voice raw, but I'd regret walking away more. The words hung there, suspended, heavier than the storm that had passed. Another heartbeat, another silence. And then, no warning, no grand decision. Her hand pressed against me, grounding, claiming. My own rose, almost shaking, to her face. Her skin was warm, real. The space between us disappeared. Not sudden, not violent, but inevitable. The kiss came like surrender, like two people finally giving in to what had always been waiting. Her lips soft, trembling, her breath catching in mine. My body felt unmoored, like gravity had shifted. She didn't pull back. Neither did I. When it broke, it wasn't an ending but a quiet collapse into closeness. Foreheads pressed together, her whisper barely audible. God help us. But her arms didn't let go. The kiss had ended, but the silence after was louder than anything that came before. Her forehead rested against mine, unmoving, her breath brushing softly against my lips. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us needed to, at least not yet. My chest rose and fell too quickly, but hers was steady, grounding me when I felt like I might drift away. Outside, The rain softened to a drizzle, the storm breaking into something gentler. Drops tapped lightly against the glass, no longer a percussion, more like a lullaby. She was the first to move. Not away, closer. Her hand slid down, finding mine, fingers threading tentatively, as though testing whether I'd let go. I didn't. I held on, tighter than I meant to, my thumb brushing across her knuckle. Her voice was low, hushed, as if the world might hear. Maybe this was reckless. I swallowed hard, my eyes searching hers. Maybe. A pause. But it feels right. Something broke in her expression then, a crack in the guarded strength she carried. She laughed, barely a sound, more an exhale with the shape of relief. It wasn't polished. It wasn't practiced. It was human. I smiled without meaning to. You don't laugh enough. Her brows lifted, amused despite herself. And you talk too much. The teasing was light, but it softened the sharp edges of what we'd done, wrapping the moment in something fragile and real. For the first time all night, it felt less like trespass and more like discovery. The room shifted with us. The desk lamp dimmed to a low glow, casting warm shadows that no longer looked dangerous but intimate, protective. The air was no longer heavy. It felt lighter, almost breathable. She leaned back just enough to study me. Her eyes searched my face, as if memorizing it, like she wasn't sure how long she'd be allowed to hold it. You'll regret this one day, she said, softer now, not as a warning, but as something closer to care. I shook my head. Not tonight. Not with you. Her lips parted like she might argue, but instead, she pressed her forehead back to mine. Her free hand rested lightly against my chest, her touch steady this time, not trembling. My arm moved around her instinctively, protective, pulling her closer into the quiet. The storm outside thinned into silence. A faint glow of morning began to edge through the curtains, pale light brushing against the room. I closed my eyes, listening to the slowing rhythm of her breath, the weight of her hand in mine. The night had broken something, yes, but it had also built something new, fragile, uncertain, but undeniable. When she finally whispered my name again, it wasn't with resistance. It was with belonging. And for the first time, I believed we might not let go.